Hi, everyone. We are so happy that you could join us. You know what? Even if you couldn't join us, we're still happy because we're already having a great time here at the Lipedema Patient Roundtable. Our panelists have been joined by a special guest tonight, and I'll do a quick introduction of everyone. My friend Pattie of @Lipedema Fitness, who hit 8,000 followers since we last got together. Congratulations to you, my friend Pattie. Siouxie Boshoff, who brings the fun every time we are together and whose gummy bears are taking the sugar-free world by storm. We are so happy to have you here, lipedema.living. Cheryl Scoledge, lipedema and food sensitivities, Lipedema diva, so happy that you are here with us. And we wouldn't know our special guest tonight if it wasn't for you, because you introduced me to your colleague and friend at your Facebook page, Kelly Maynard, who is joining us as a special guest tonight. She's got a super testimony and also will add so much to our general lipedema conversation. We're so glad. Wild Heart Wellness is where you can find Kelly Maynard. Angelique Charles is nodding her head because she knows Kelly really well, because Kelly is her coach, her health coach. So that's super exciting. The lippy butterfly is Angelique Charles. Pale ginger pear, the girl with the hair. Cara Cruz is here with us tonight. And we want to talk about this interesting post she had saying, "Don't call me BBW." And if you're wondering what BBW is, like I was, stay tuned. You're going to want to hear this conversation. Now, my heart is fluttering because do you see what I see? I see that Dr. Karen Herbst is logging on, and we love Dr. Karen Herbst. She is a shining light for the lipedema community. She has devoted her research, her energy, her passion, her skills to the lipedema community. She always has great answers for questions, and she was the primary author, with a great team of people, of the standard of care for lipedema in the United States. This is a document you can find on our website. You can find it almost anywhere because the authors were kind enough to make it free and accessible to everyone. We recommend, if you can't get a doctor to treat you properly, find one, or march in with the standard of care and say, this is what I need. And so with that, we are going to begin our riveting discussion this month. And I do want to begin with my friend Kelly Maynard, because I asked her to come on because she got the Optimal Plus by Lympha Press. Now, by the way, you know I'm Brenda Viola. I work for Lympha Press. This is not a commercial for Lympha Press. We have great discussions all year long and all hour long about things that have nothing to do with Lympha Press. But I got to tell you, the kind of results that Kelly got after 2 months. All right, give us the Reader's Digest version. What were your results after 2 months, Kelly Maynard?
So 2 months in, I have lost about 32 inches, I think. My fibrosis has softened. I've got a lot less pain. I could go on for a while. So and super excited.
It is super exciting. Now, I have to tell you, Kelly is diligent. She is compliant. Her Optimal Plus doesn't just sit in a corner collecting dust. Number one, because it's so easy to use. But how many times a day are you pumping with the Optimal Plus by Lympha Press?
That thing has taken over my couch, and I'm in there 5 to 6 hours a day.
So we say that not to freak any of you out, because not everybody's going to do that. But Kelly was really committed, and she doesn't just do the lower extremity. She also has the jacket to do the upper extremity, which is an interesting testimony because I haven't heard of so many lipedema patients that are having both the upper and the lower, but your doctor specifically recommended that, didn't she?
She did. And she also recommended the bigger amount of time per day, just because I've had a lot of fluid. She estimates about 50 to 70 pounds of fluid, and it's been hanging around for a long time. So that jacket was one of the reasons my insurance kind of delayed for a while, because they don't like to approve those kinds of things much. But she was really hoping that I could get the jacket just because fluid tends to shift and lipedema to shift. can shift. And so we wanted to treat the whole body, and it's really working well.
Well, we're thrilled, and we want you to know, everybody out there watching, I have a few comments already from people saying they're looking forward to getting their Lympha Press. Leslie Sterling, we're looking forward to you getting one too. April Sluter is cheering you on, Kelly, saying that is amazing. Dr. Herbst says she's going to be on video shortly, so we're all super excited about that. Carol Moody says hi from St. Louis. You know, it's just so gratifying to see people get results. And I will say this, you know, we never talk against any competitive products. Look, whatever works for you, all I can say is not all pneumatic compression devices are created equal. I tested and proved the Optimal Plus with key people to make sure we weren't going to make promises that would be disappointing. So like I said, not everybody's going to lose 30 plus inches and 20 pounds in 2 months like Kelly, but you will see improvement. And many people at this panel have seen improvement. Now, there's something that Kelly said in her interview, and you should check out the full interview on YouTube. I've always heard about pain associated with lipedema, but when she started pumping regularly with the Optimal Plus by Lympha Press, she noticed an ache reduce. So ache is just another kind of pain, but she said, I was living with it all the time and I didn't even know it was one of the things I dealt with. So I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Do you all deal with that ache? Is that what you refer to as pain, or is it pain and ache? Please just jump in, because I think this is an important conversation.
There's a dull, constant ache that's just life for us in a way. And then there's moments that are worse, and it's more of a like shooting or like stronger pain movement or moment.
Gotcha. So you actually, go ahead, Cheryl.
And for me, I've noticed different types of pain. So of course, a lot of people might talk just in general about joint pain because, you know, it hurts their knees. But, you know, we're all kind of talking about the lipedema pain around the nodules. But I've also noticed like a nerve pain. And so sometimes, especially, I mean, I've been able to figure out that there's a particular food that causes that particular nerve pain for me. And then the other one is like, there's just so much fluid that's stressing the skin and pressing on the skin that any type of touch, there's that pain as well, just from that fluid kind of stretching the skin. So to me, there's many different kinds of pain that can be associated.
I also want to say, I think that the nodules, and because of the lymphedema, I think it has a tendency to put pressure on the nerves, and it causes the deferred pain that's throughout the whole body. Like I had gotten to the point where even if my husband went like this, like gently on my back, I would be like, dude, literally like, no. And he's like, that, are you kidding? And I'm like, it's not all the time, but it's sometimes. And it's just everything you described, all of you, I think everything. Yeah.
So what was interesting to me about your story, Kelly, is you didn't even realize that you had this ache until it was gone.
Yeah, I had used the Optimal Plus, and then I got sick with like a stomach thing, and you don't want to be squeezing yourself in the Optimal Plus while you're feeling like that. So I had laid off of it for a couple of days. And I realized after a couple of days that I had this just underlying achiness, and it's not a joint ache or like you get the flu and you have that ache when you're sick. It's not, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, it's just an underlying ache all the time. Not really a shooting pain, a stabbing pain, a throbbing pain, which I think all of us have had those too.
Yeah.
And with pressure, there's a different kind of pain, like everyone's saying, but it's just, it underlies everything. And whenever I quit using the Lympha Press for a couple of days, I felt that again. And I thought, that's what I've been feeling this whole time. And when I was consistent with the Lympha Press, it had gone away. And so that's one of the things that I can gauge how I'm doing is now that I realize that pain, that ache can increase or decrease depending how many sessions of the Lympha Press I do. I can kind of figure out where my good spot is for, how many sessions I'm doing per day and kind of how I need to keep up with that.
The reason we do these roundtables is to provide hope and information and education. And when you hear someone else say what they've got, and you can feel like, oh, that's me too. See yourself in the situation, know that you're not crazy, know how to put a name to what you're feeling. These are all important things that validate your experience. And so I've heard often about lipedema pain, but I feel like this new phrase, using the word ache and knowing that it was dissipated for you is so good. And there's our beautiful Dr. Karen Herbst. Hey, how are you? It's so good to see you. So we cannot have you muted because you are so brilliant.
Sorry.
We want to hear everything you say.
I just said you look amazing.
Well,
So does everybody else.
You already were one of my favorite people. Now, forget about it. You're amazing. So we're talking about this ache associated with lipedema, and everybody's nodding their heads. And so I bet you were nodding your head too.
Well, we were in the standard of care paper, we talk about the overlap between lipedema, pain, and other signs and symptoms and venous disease, that they can be very similar, but not all women with lipedema have venous disease. So it's definitely not the entire answer. And then in the last lymphedema or Lympha Press webinar that we talked about, there was the involvement.
That was freaking brilliant. Okay. Mind, Body, and the Matrix. If you have not seen that webinar by Dr. Karen Herbst, go to the Lympha Press YouTube page. You need to watch it. It was groundbreaking. And we were so proud to partner with you on that. Thank you. Thank you. You said it was one of the most difficult presentations you ever put together.
Yeah, I just kept, I was learning at the same time I was writing it, instead of just putting in the slides that I already have and just talking, it was like, where can we go next? How can we push the envelope here? And linking in the sympathetic nervous system to pain, I think is really important. And a lot of ladies with lipedema have hypermobile joints, or they have autonomic dysfunction, POTS, and acrocyanosis, and, everything that goes along with that. And so I think maybe we should think more about, the sympathetic nervous system as part of a way of it causing pain somehow. But, definitely the inflammation, definitely pressure buildup. I saw, Leslie say something like that. The nerves, if they're sitting in a soup of toxic fluid, sure, the nerve's going to be screaming, with that too. And then just the pressure from the increase in fat, and even if you've lost elasticity in your skin, your limb can only get so big, in such a short period of time. And so that there's that, you feel like you're stretched. And I think Kelly mentioned that, so lots of different ways that you can get pain.
Well, we've got chat going on. People are fangirling all over the place because you are with us, and actually with lots of love and appreciation for the entire panel, which I share. I look forward to this every month. This is a joyful spot in our month.
I love coming, and I'm so sorry I haven't been able to attend, and I was like, darn it, I'm going to attend tonight. And somebody said, hey, I'm going to give you a call. And I'm like, oh no, I have this on my calendar. I'm coming to this.
We are so honored. Well, tomorrow's my birthday. So this is my birthday present. You have all of my favorite people together. This is a party. Love to everybody. So we've got so many fun things to talk about, but I also want to make sure that while we have you, Dr. Herbst, anything that's on your heart or mind to share with the group, we want you to have at it. But I have to tell you, there was this post by Pale Ginger Pear that got lots of attention, and it was entitled, "Don't Call Me BBW." So I had to look it up, but why don't you share for the rest of the class, Pale Ginger Pear?
So I was kid-free for the night and bored, so I decided to do a live with no real topic in mind. And a guy in the comments called me a BBW and kind of went off about how he loves us. And BBW means big, beautiful woman. Or there's also the term SSBBW, which is supersized BBW. And that angers me even more than the first one. And since I had no real topic in mind and no filter, I kind of ranted. And so I saved the whole hour live and edited it down to that 11-minute little rant. But for me, being called a BBW is an insult. It makes me feel like a fetish and a porn category. It doesn't make me feel like a person. And I mean, I know there are some women that are okay with it. And if you are, I'm not against you embracing it. For me personally, it makes me feel just like an object. And I don't think the word big needs to be in there. I'm either beautiful or I'm not. Like, to me, I hear it in a sarcastic tone, because that's how I hear everything. But I hear it in a sarcastic tone of, well, she's beautiful for being big. That if I wasn't big, I wouldn't qualify as beautiful. And that just sets off the redheaded temper like nothing else. And so I personally don't like it. And if a guy approaches it with me, like to me with it, it's an instant, like, we're done, the conversation's over. Whether it's on Instagram or even a dating site. Like, I even told a guy earlier today on a dating site, he was like, I really don't want to mess this up. How can we keep talking? I was like, well, don't send me a dirty picture and don't call me a BBW and we might keep talking.
There you go. If you want to know the keys for dating pale ginger pear, please don't call her BBW and no dirty pictures, but that doesn't work with any, well, I don't know. I don't want to judge. Never worked for me. As soon as I got the dirty pictures, it was like, nope, swipe wrong. You're not for me. Angelique, did you want to weigh in on that? Because I saw you nodding a lot.
I do. Me and Cara actually have talked about this a little bit, offline, off of here. And, dating in the community of us is just, it's so iffy a lot of times. There are so many guys that are looking for BBWs and SSBBWs for a fetish. I didn't always look at it the way that Cara looked at it, but even when she mentioned it, it actually brought something to mind, which was like, wow, it is. Every time someone writes me and they use those terms, they're looking for something that's fetish-like, and I don't want to be looked at like an object. There are some men, especially in the lipedema community or the lipedema admirer community, that actually are attracted to our pain and our struggle. And I think it's absolutely disgusting, but we come across it in our day-to-day lives.
Wow.
And it's something that I understand where Cara's coming from, because when those terms start to come up, it triggers something with the messages that I've received before and the inappropriate pictures that I've received before. There's something to be said about understanding that we are still human beings who are in a struggle, and we don't need the extra mess that goes on, especially with the men that love us or don't love us, really.
Really well said, Angelique. We're getting a lot of chat saying, yes, we don't need that as an identifier. And I don't think anybody wants to be objectified or treated like all that is to them is what you can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. There's so much more, the essence of who you are, your humor, your wisdom, your intellect, your personality, your kindness, all of those things are your full package. And that's what you want to be appreciated for. I want to switch topics real quick because there was a post, Pattie, that you had about a gene mutation discovery for EDS. And we're so glad that Dr. Lindy McHutchison popped in here. We always love having you, Dr. McHutchison. And of course, we have Dr. Herbst. So from a medical perspective, we're interested in your opinion, but can you give us a synopsis of what you posted and why you found it so interesting, Pattie?
Yeah, so one of the women in my group actually had shared it with us, and I just was like, this is kind of interesting. They specifically were talking about the hypermobile EDS and that they had discovered this mutation. And so when I went to check it out, it was a professor at MUSC, and he not only himself, but he had other students that had EDS and were medical students all participating in this research. And it was just really interesting how they got into it. It wasn't something that was typically on their radar. One of the people who kind of came into the class didn't know what she wanted to study and specialize in, and they started on a different area. And then she kind of got talking about her own EDS and how that was something that at first she was like, is it kind of weird that I'm doing my study on my own disease? And so he ended up setting up like a whole group of, like, he put out a call for students, medical students with EDS to participate in this group. And there's like 5 of them that have all been on this research. And the idea that I guess they've had other EDS special types have these other genes that have been specified, but this was the first one for the hypermobile joints. And that's pretty exciting. And so they're hopeful within the next 3 to 5 years that they're going to have a lot more understanding about it. And then that can hopefully get into treatments and things of that nature too.
Which, you know, some of our viewers might be saying, but I thought this was a lipedema patient roundtable, but often they're connected, aren't they?
Yeah, both connective tissue disorders.
Yeah. So Dr. Herbst, is there anything you want to add to this conversation or about the gene discovery?
Well, I'm dying to know the gene, and I think they have it down to 10, right? Or something like that. And they started at like 17,000, or, you know, it's a huge number. So that's very exciting. And I know at the University of Arizona, they're doing the same thing. So now I feel like I should say, hey, what's going on over there? And, you know, because you guys are competing with those guys over there, and see what happens. But Steve Dean just did a talk for the American Vein and Lymphatic Society on comparing the standard of care guidelines for the US compared to those of Europe. And he spent almost the entire time talking about hypermobile joints and hypermobile tissue as being part of, being part of EDS. I mean, yeah, you could ask Lindy. It was just like his whole talk was lipedema, hypermobility. So it was really interesting.
Can I ask a question follow-up, because I'm intrigued? Would it be easy to say what the main difference between the European and the United States standard of care is?
So yeah, I think the first point is that they only had a few points, like it was 9 or less that were standard of care statements. We had 85. Because we're all overachievers and we all had a lot to say.
Rock on.
Yeah, so that's one big difference. The second one is the 2 main authors don't think there's any edema and lipedema. And that's what Steve Dean spent a lot of time talking about. Like, you know, he completely doesn't agree with that. He said there is edema and lipedema, and he used many different examples, even papers that I haven't even heard of, and now I'm going to look them all up. But there is edema and lipedema. It's just a different kind of edema, and you can't just define edema as loose fluid flowing around your tissue. There's other states that fluid resides in, and we've talked about this before, that it's bound up to the proteoglycans, which are those sugar molecules bound to a protein backbone. So that was one of the points. I can't remember many of the other points.
I totally put you on the spot. We are so appreciative of the standard of care. In fact, Lympha Press is hosting a breakfast at the AVLS conference in October, where we are celebrating the standard of care, honoring the authors, and we're so proud to have you, Dr. Herbst, to lead that breakfast session for us. And the more education we can get out, the better. Absolutely. Better. And I'm hoping you are there, Dr. McHutchison, because, you know, there is some champagne to be toasted. You're not responding to that one, are you?
I'm sorry, I'm muted. I actually, I am going to attend, so I will be there.
Yes. All right. We're excited. We're excited. Okay. We have a question from the audience. Anonymous attendee. Does lipedema fat weigh more than actual fat? I can't seem to get a definitive answer on this. I see some nodding heads.
Wow, that's a really great question.
I know.
I mean, when yeah, I'll say yes. But if you have someone with abdominal obesity and they have a big belly and it's hanging down and you try and pick that up, it's super heavy. So it's kind of similar in that sense. If you have massive localized lymphedema on the leg, it's going to be really heavy. So anything with excess fluid is going to, as in lipedema, is going to weigh more than regular fat. And like you see people who've lost weight and they have hanging tissue from their upper arm and there's still fat in there, but it's really light and fluffy. At least that's what I call it. Yeah. But whereas before they had the surgery, it was, bigger and heavier. But what a great, I gotta think more about that one, but good on you.
We love our questions. Go ahead, Pattie. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I gotta say, personally, I do think it does, because every time I would go to the doctor's office and they put you on the scale, they always underweighed me, like by a lot. And I'd be like, oh, that's really flattering. I thought they were trying to be nice to me, but they were always blown away with how much heavier I was than what I looked.
Interesting. And Kelly, you're nodding, and Cheryl, you're nodding. So, we've got some anecdotal information here, but I see your researcher's brain, Dr. Herbst, saying, I want to look into this a little bit more.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be able to weigh tissue. And I was thinking of how can you weigh a thigh? I think if you have to put it up somehow, hook it up, but there's just no gentle, nice, safe way of doing it. But if someone could kind of come up with it, that would be great.
All right. Well, anybody out there watching, if you can come up with a way to measure it, to weigh a thigh, go ahead, Cheryl.
Just saying, anecdotally, in our group, we have had many women talk about this many times, talking about how, they would be a particular dress size and someone else that they knew or a family member or friend would be a similar size, and the weight difference was typically much more with the lipedema. And it's been brought up in our group many times.
Very interesting. Go ahead, Siouxie. You're muted right now. Go ahead.
The one thing I would say is water weighs so much. Fluid is intensely heavy compared to fat. Like if you drink a glass of water and then you weigh yourself in the morning, you're going to weigh more than if you had just emptied your bladder and weigh yourself.
Oh, believe me, I don't get on the scale unless I'm totally stripped down, went to the bathroom first, feeling my very best, because who needs the stress, right? I'm not getting on the scale unless I feel good about it. For me personally, others may not have that problem. So I want to ask you, you said something, Siouxsie, earlier about this slippery feeling.
Oh, with the EDS.
Yeah, but also with other, and Cheryl, jump in there, because it was another term I wasn't used to.
Well, we're so aqueous. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think Dr. Herbst covered it so beautifully in even her talk last year, where she was talking about all the interstitial tissue and all of that fluid. So I just think when you have EDS, there's this, everything's not held together the way it's supposed to. So you have ligaments and you have tissues and you have stuff that at least for me, acts funky. Like even when I had 4 babies, right? I had all of my babies, I carried them, had them naturally. And even when I had my last one, my doctor was like, you really should not have any more children. And even though I have broad hips, the way I carried my uterus and all of my tissues were like, I give up. Like, here's the baby and we don't care where it goes. It's kind of floppy and it wasn't tone, and it wasn't, and it's not from exercising or not exercising. It's just that everything, I didn't know what it was until I got diagnosed later. So.
Yeah. And some of the chatter before we went live tonight was even like when you go to the dentist, needing to take extra anesthesia or extra shots for the pain because your body isn't processing it like everybody else?
Yes, there's two issues with anesthesia. So the first is that, like with a local anesthesia, that because we have the loose connective tissue, that the anesthesia will dissipate too quickly and just move away from that spot. So the EDS Foundation has brochures talking, it has brochures to take to your dentist to make sure that they understand the issues with Ehlers-Danlos, because you may need more than one shot. And then with general anesthesias, apparently a lot of us are rapid processors. And so we'll process and use up the anesthesia quickly. And so many times people will realize that they feel the dental work or they'll feel the surgery. So it's just something to be aware of.
It is something to be aware of. We do have a question from Heather Zunker out there. Heather, we're so glad you joined us tonight. We always love when you're with us. She's seeing a big increase in comments on social media about collagen. People say it's good for lipedema. People say it's bad. She's getting more confused by the day. Is it good to take collagen or not? Who wants to weigh in?
I'm taking liquid collagen and it is badass. Like my hair here and here is growing back in. Like this line was receding to the point where I would never wear my hair like this. I'd always have to cover because it was so awkward. And it's literally, I have baby hairs growing in. And I also find that it's helping in other ways, but it's also really expensive. But I was taking the regular collagen, even that was helping me, but the vital protein and like grass-fed, grass-finished or whatever, like something high quality collagen.
Go ahead, Pattie.
I actually had the discomfort come with taking collagen where it almost was like plantar fasciitis in my feet. And I stopped, it went away. I tried again, I want to say like a year later, same thing. And so I had to stop. So it doesn't work for me personally.
Can I just ask one question, not to be terrible?
Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing that I think is super fascinating is depending on where the origin of the food is, I'm just telling you, being in the food industry for the first time is really horrifying. And the ethics and integrity level of sourcing ingredients is really uncool. And I'm telling you this because, for example, I've seen people that have gotten tested on their sensitivity to xylitol, right? So xylitol has several brands, but only one of those brands has xylitol that comes from America. Everything else comes from China. And I promise you, if it got analyzed, there's additional ingredients that we don't know about. And I'm telling you this because the type of product that you take, you don't know if there's fillers. Like any whey protein that comes from China, they were putting melamine because it has similar minerals that are required for whey protein in it, which is what caused all the animals when they had to do the recall of animal food and the baby formula. So I'm just saying that I would like when you're going to take something like that that's concentrated, because that's how they make it, they're like rendering it and then giving you a product that it can't be cut with anything else or have any other fillers. So I'm not saying that it doesn't do right for you. I'm just saying that sometimes I've had multiple ingredients that haven't done well for me and then found out that the source, once I changed that, mattered.
Great point. Always find out where your stuff is coming from before you put it in your body or even on your body. But this is a great point to make, that what works for one person may not work for the next. And I'm interested to know from our medical professionals as a whole, do you have any opinions about collagen?
I was looking into collagen after one of the FDRS conferences because Claire Francomano, who's an expert in EDS, said that one of her patients had been taking collagen and their joint pain went down dramatically. They just felt a lot better. And she felt that there was something to it. So it might be the fact that someone has EDS and someone doesn't in terms of benefit. And I totally agree with Siouxsie. There's so much garbage in things that we take, including medication. And one of the things I was just working on is, when my patients say, like, what thyroid medication should I take? And I've been recommending Tirosint because it's a gel capsule with the least amount of excipient ingredients. And I have a list of all the excipient ingredients in Synthroid, Naturethroid, a generic levothyroxine. And there's one in Naturethroid, I was reading through the ingredients with the patient and I said, what is this? And we were reading through it and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I mean, like, I have never heard of this. What is that? So, I mean, like all the other chemical stuff you hear about, but it's really important to read the ingredients on whatever you're taking, whatever medication you're taking. And if you react to different medications, you could have mast cell activation disease, and dermatology specializes in evaluating you for reactions to excipient ingredients. So they do that as opposed to the allergist, you know, and I didn't know that until I was working at Banner and they told me about that. So if you are concerned about excipient ingredients and think you're reacting to something like polyethylene glycol, for example, a dermatologist is the place to go.
So follow up, thank you for that response, Dr. Herbst. Leslie Sterling is wanting to know from everyone, what's wrong with levothyroxine?
Yeah, so that's like a generic thyroid medication. It just has a lot more excipient ingredients, a lot of more chemicals in it than Tirosint, which is what I'm kind of leaning towards now, just because so many people have mast cells, and you're just putting, every time you take your thyroid, you're just putting more chemicals in your body. And if you take 4 other medications, you're putting those chemicals in your body. And I just think it's important to reduce the chemicals down to the smallest number as possible. And I think the company that makes Tirosint is aware of that. So they made it a gel cap or gel capsule. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my vocabulary has increased this past month, thanks to everybody. And Cheryl, you had a question about keratoconus. Is that how I say it?
Yes, I believe so. Anyway, because I've only also read it. So, I was reading a book, Your Eyes and EDS, because I've had dry eye and I'm thinking that it's EDS related dry eye. So I was trying to figure that out. And so when I was reading through the book, they had mentioned the keratoconus. Wow, I thought I could say it. So what it is the lens of the eye becomes cone shaped. And it's not that it's likely if you have EDS that you have this, but it's almost the opposite. If you do have this cone shape, then it's likely that you have EDS. It was something like 60% of the people that have this eye issue have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. But the thing that I found fascinating was that she mentioned that one of the new treatments for this is to take an eye drop of riboflavin and then UV light, and it increases the cross-linking of the collagen. And they think that they're going to be having some type of improvement in EDS skin, trying to extrapolate this procedure to EDS and increasing the cross-linking. And the nerd in me just went, oh, that's so cool. So I had to kind of share that. So
thank you.
It is cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And as we were chatting about EDS, Angelique was sitting there saying, I think I have that, which is something that you were saying that you can bend, but you can't move. What?
Well, I still am struggling with mobility, but when Cheryl was explaining the symptoms that are related to EDS, I was like, wait a minute, I can bend over and put my palms flat on the floor. And a couple of the other things that she was saying, it started making me wonder if some of my pain was attributed to that, or if some of the reasons why pain relievers don't work so well on me is attributed to that. But I think that is something for me to continue to look into. I hadn't even heard of it until meeting Cheryl.
Yeah, the more you know, the more you can take action. And thank you, Dr. Herbst, for answering the question that was coming up in chat. Tirosint is the thyroid medication with less chemicals. Thank you so much, Dr. Herbst, for putting that in chat for Carol Moody and everybody else who was wondering about that very question. We have some other questions here as well. Sue Hunt wants to know, what is a good schedule for dry brushing and using the pump? She wants to know how to fit it all in her day. By the way, Kelly, who started out tonight talking about her Lympha Press Optimal Plus, and she does 6 hours a day, which is not what everybody would be asked to do. Usually it's 2 hours a day. She just is hardcore and getting hardcore results, 30 inches down, 20 pounds down. But Kelly, how do you fit it all in?
Okay, to be honest, it's hard. It's really hard. And so when I committed to doing the Lympha Press, and it won't be 6 hours forever. With most therapies, it's like if you commit to a therapeutic level, which is what I'm doing right now, it should decrease after a while. Like my body should react well. If it continues to react well, I won't do 6 hours. But it's hard when you have a full-time job that's sitting in your Lympha Press. That's really hard to fit anything else in, really. I think you have to figure out what's a good amount of time for the Lympha Press, and then what other therapies are really beneficial for you. Because
I'm going to interrupt you, Kelly, because you tried a lot of things for 7 years and didn't get any results. So when you finally found something that really worked, you're like, I'm in, I'm all in, I'm doing this.
And I've done a lot of things, and they did help with my pain, or they helped with the fibrosis. They did help. But the other thing about the Lympha Press is I wanted to do just the Lympha Press and see what happened. Just because if I'm going to invest that time and I'm going to invest the cost and the energy, and I finally got it, it's like, I'm going to do that just by itself, because then you could always say, well, finally that other therapy worked, and the Lympha Press just kind of, it was just a little added bonus. So I really wanted to just focus on that. But as far as therapy, Cheryl and I have done a few videos, and one of the last ones we did talked about layering therapies or trying to do more than one thing. And it can be really overwhelming. And I think what's worked for me, and Cheryl and I have talked about this a lot, and I've talked to Angelique about it too, but you have to find what works for you. And if dry brushing works for you, then dry brush. But if dry brushing doesn't work for you, and you're just spending all that time dry brushing because somebody said you should, then maybe you shouldn't. And I'm not saying don't dry brush. I'm saying try things out and see what works for you, and then try to figure out how that can work in your own life. Because if you hate it, you're not going to keep up with it. And if it doesn't really work for you, eventually you're going to resent it and you're going to hate it, and you're not going to do it anymore. So the therapies that work for you are the therapies that fit in your budget, in your lifestyle, that you like, that you can consistently do.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's so true. It's got to be easy to use, and it's a pleasure. A lot of people I talk to say this is me time. When I'm pumping, it's me time. How do you fit it all in, Cara? I know you do a lot of different modalities, including the Lympha Press.
Yeah, I fit it in a lot where, like, I bring the kid upstairs and we watch TV in my bed with it. And I work from home with a desk that rolls over my bed. So sometimes I will be in the pump, like typing on the computer for work, because after a while I end up sliding down flatter in it. No matter how I sit myself up, I don't know what happens. But yeah, I work, I watch stuff with the kid. I get caught up on messages through social media that I had been putting off, and just kind of do what I can while in it.
Yeah. So it's a balancing act. And Pattie, you do your Lympha Press and a lot of other things. You have a vibration plate and a very robust exercise schedule. What's the latest in your workout of the day? You're doing Peloton a lot, I see.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Peloton app. I have a regular stationary bike. I don't have the Peloton bike, but when I was traveling for about 3 weeks recently, right over the triathlon period, the person I was staying with had a Peloton. So I got my first experience on the actual Peloton bike. And let me just say, your tush needs time to break in that seat. I missed my nice wide seat stationary bike. And yeah, I love the Peloton. I think it motivates you quite a bit. There's various classes and structure that you can go through there.
Hey, the commercials motivate me, and I'm not motivated to exercise, but get on Peloton. I'm like, okay, sign me up. I want to do it. But I loved Angelique's story about bowling with mommy. Because look, movement is important. The Lympha Press helps to move lymph and break up fibrosis. It does so much for you, but there's so much you can do in a swimming pool. Remember last month we learned about that app where you can find a swimming pool, Swimply, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So tell me about bowling, Angelique. Bowling with Angelique. That should be a new TV show.
Well, you know, I'm all about trying to find things that I actually enjoy doing, because I'm not the exercise freak or the walker or anything like that. So I needed to find things that I could do, especially living in Arizona where it's hot, especially right now. Like we're dealing with a heat wave at 120-degree temperatures pretty much. So I was looking for things to do that I could get out and do. And my mom was coming with me to bowling. And then finally I noticed that my mom was bowling a whole game. She's going to be 80 in a couple of weeks. So that was exciting for me and encouraging to keep on doing it. It was kind of a play where her ended up being my motivation to keep wanting to go bowling. But it's back to just finding anything that works for you, what fits into your schedule, what you're happy with, what you're enjoying doing, but you're knowing that you're doing something that's beneficial for your body.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm so glad. And I loved how you went to the arcade last month too. There are fun things you can do in air conditioning to move your body and feel alive and engage with life. I think that's all good advice. Now, I do want to go to Carolina Vein Center and Dr. Lindy McHutchison, and we haven't seen you in a couple months. So is there anything new that you've learned or something you've observed with the many lipedema patients that you help on a daily basis?
Actually, I have to say no. There hasn't been that much that I've seen. I have mainly been sort of trying to get some extra help in my clinic so that I can start seeing lipedema patients again, which I'm opening my schedule up actually in August for, and trying to create a new program. So as far as management, I haven't changed very much with my recommendations, except the only thing that I have discovered in my town in Durham is that there is a plastic surgeon in town. She's not a lipedema expert, but she's a pretty good body sculpting plastic surgeon. And she is getting the paniculectomies done with insurance. And so I've started to use that as an adjuvant for some, before patients go get their liposuction to have them get it valued so that insurance will cover as much as I can. So I'm sort of trying to do that. But other than that, I really haven't added very much to that.
Well, you're so busy. You opened up another practice in recent months too. So we're just so glad, and still found time to be one of the authors of the Standard of Care. So thank you very much for all that. Speaking of surgery, Cara, you were selling cookies so you could afford your next trip out to California.
Yes. Yeah,
You got to give me more than yes.
So
Work with me.
Way before my lipedema awareness stuff, I used to bake gluten-free. I mean, I still do because I have celiac disease, but I had an e-store where I sold gluten-free cookies, brownies, and crackers that I made. And one of the cookies that I made was a bacon chocolate chip cookie. And gluten-free, not necessarily healthy, but gluten-free. And so I was seeing my dear friend Libby Higgins for her comedy show, along with Trailer Trash Tammy, about 2 weeks ago. And so I baked them cookies and I posted about it in my Instagram stories, and I got a ton of people going, I want a bag, make me a bag. And so then I decided, well, why not, for a donation towards my surgery fund, I would send you a thank you of a dozen cookies, because you can't legally sell them right now. So it's a thank you. So there's a story highlight on my Instagram that has a picture of cookies and talks about the bacon chocolate chip and what the donation is and all of that. So I've been baking. I had 20 dozen ordered.
Oh my goodness,
Or-
I can just smell. Don't you wish we had aroma vision or something, so we could all smell the cookies? We all want to taste those cookies, but we're proud of you, Cara, and how you are continuing to be creative and resilient and find ways to get what you want to achieve, which you want to go back to Dr. Schwartz and you want to get your next surgery. So kudos to you. I do want to talk about food for just 1 minute, because I have 2 other food topics here. One is, what's the status update of our awesome gummy, scrummy, give us the right name, Siouxie Boshoff?
Scrummy gummy bears. Look, I made this.
Oh my God, it's
The
cute.
girl who loves gummy bears. Okay. And they are about to take the sugar-free world by storm.
They sent me my actual completed samples. They're so much softer than the ones that anybody tried. I'm sorry that you tried really chewy ones. These are still chewy. They don't stick in your teeth, but they came out beautiful. But this is my packaging.
That's awesome.
I love it. And here's the message. Lipedema, you may have lipedema, but lipedema doesn't have to have you.
Yeah.
You can take whatever challenges you're facing and use your brilliance and your creativity to create something like Cara has done, or Siouxie has done, or the 8,000 followers that Pattie now has, because she decided she wanted to move. So now she has a movement that she has created. There is hope, there is help, there is bowling with mommy, and there is Hershey's soy-free chocolate, right, Cheryl?
Yes. So it's very difficult to find soy-free chocolate. I don't know if anyone else has ever tried to look for it, but it is really hard to find that. And so I was really excited. Just recently, Hershey's came out with a soy-free, and so with such a large manufacturer, I mean, it's on the shelves, very easy to get to. So that was very exciting for me. So
yeah, I was excited when I saw it for you, because you might have thought you won the lottery. Hershey's has soy-free chocolate, but it was exciting. Hey, I want to also mention too, Siouxie, you had posted about having a self-care tracking sheet.
Yes, I made a daily checklist. Mine's a little bit, has extra things in it that probably everybody wouldn't have, but I have to check it every single day, all of the different things. And I never check everything off, but it does keep me on task. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm trying to launch this business. And Carol asked about this. They're going to ship to us on Friday. So we will have them on Monday, and then we'll be shipping out orders. Anyway, but that being said, it's been a little bit crazy, but it just reminds me to do the self-care things that I need to do, the dry brushing and this and this, because sometimes I forget, and I'm like, oh, wait, I need to get rid of the lymph fluid, and I need to, so
yeah, well, it's so important to take care of yourself. And Angelique, last month you quoted verbatim Dr. Herbst's final encouragement in her Mind, Body, and the Matrix. Do you have that on the tip of your tongue again? And maybe Dr. Herbst, you could weigh in as we start to close out our quick hour. It always goes by so quickly. Angelique, what was it that you shared so beautifully last month? And am I putting you on the spot?
I actually do have it or close here. It was, maybe Dr. Herbst remembers, it was the Okopono. I'm what is it? I love myself, I forgive myself. I know I have it right handy, but it actually was so encouraging to me when she said that we had to forgive ourselves and free ourselves from any of the, thank you, April Sluter, Ho'opono. Yes, to forgive yourself is so important throughout this journey, because Like we talked about, there's so many different tools that you can use. Dry brushing might not have worked for you and you tried it for an entire year, but you have to forgive yourself of that and move on and free yourself to try something new and allow your heart to be light.
You know, Dr. Herbst, I think one of the things that so struck a chord in that groundbreaking presentation was this spiritual component that you brought in. You did that intentionally.
Yes, I did, because we're all, I mean, you know, just listening to Cara talk about how, you know, people saying these things and just how that changes your psyche and it stresses you out and your sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and then all the changes that occur in your body because of that. And, you know, all the old trauma drama that can set off. And so I think the Ho'oponopono is important because it reminds you that, you know, to recenter yourself, like, oh, wait a second, but I love myself. So you're that negative person saying, look at you, you go, oh, wait, no, I love myself. I forgive myself. And I think the exact words were, I am sorry. You're saying this to your body. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And then the Morna Simeona added, and it is done. And for me, that clinches it, because and it is done, you're accepting it then. Oh, I got chills up as I got all up and down my legs.
Yeah.
The goosies.
Yeah, it's a powerful affirmation. And, you know, we are body, soul, and spirit. And so taking care of all of those different components, you know, sometimes taking care of the body, like the results you've had, Kelly, they've helped your soul and your spirit, because you're seeing positive change, the fruit of your hard work and your desire to get better. You're finally seeing something happen there. Kelly, I want to give you the last minute. If you have anything you want to say to the audience, we know that you are a people person and a life coach, and we're so honored that you shared the panel with us tonight as well. Is there anything you want to say to offer some inspiration or hope to our attendees?
I think what I always want to say kind of goes back to what Dr. Herbst has been sharing the past couple minutes, and that's give yourself grace. Every day, give yourself grace. You don't have to be perfect, and you can forgive yourself for those little things that you didn't do exactly right. You don't have to blame yourself that you're dealing with this disease, because a lot of us have done literally everything we can, and we're still struggling with it. It's not your fault that you are struggling with lipedema. And even if you have lipedema, this is something I've learned this last month. Sitting in that Lympha Press for all those hours gives me a lot of time to think. You are a person with a chronic illness. That doesn't mean that you're a lesser person. You still are worth all you were worth before. You know, you're still created to be an amazing person. You may have to alter some of your plans in life, but that doesn't mean that you have to alter who you are, that you aren't true to yourself anymore. And so I think part of what I try to do is say, give yourself grace and do the best you can for right now, for that day. And every day's a new day. So lots of love for yourself.
And lots of love right back to you. And it is time to close out another Lipedema Patient Roundtable. It has been, as always, a joy and inspiring. I always say this, yeah, you're flawed, but you're awesome. You're flawsome. So embrace your flawsomeness, live life fully. If we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. We would be honored to help. And we hope to see you next month. And big hugs and kisses to Dr. Herbst and Dr. McHutchison. We just love you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. See you soon.